Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter, your favorite box office recap show on the entire internet. I am Dykstra, joined as always by my friend and fellow box office enthusiast, Tucker Hazel. Tucker, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Little bit of bittersweet. This is the last one of the year. But Tanner,
That's true.
guess what? One
Yes.
month from now, we'll be
What?
able to do another one because next year also has movies. So,
Next year has months and movies.
I know, and we love those things here on this show.
That's right. Tucker, let's just say it. Tucker, what are we doing here today? We're doing some
Box
box
office,
office
ballyhoo.
ballyhoo. That's right,
Yeah.
baby. For the month of December 2024, the big holiday release window was this month, and the early December doldrums were also this month. So we'll talk
Yes.
about all the movies that released in both of those segments of December. But before we get into it, I want to remind you to, of course, do the YouTube things. Subscribe to Backlot Banter if you're not already. Go ahead and join our Discord server. There's a link for that in the description. You can talk about movies there with us. We'd be more than happy to discuss box office things or movies,
That's true.
video games, comics,
That's true.
cooking, working out, music,
Mmm.
anything of that nature can be
Yeah.
found in there
I
and
believe a
more.
box office board games section was added recently. I don't know. I mute the shit I'm not interested in, so whatever.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right,
I jumped in there
Tucker,
as soon as the channel was made, and I was like, another channel to mute, and I
gotta
did.
mute that. Gotta mute that. All right, Tucker. Let's start where we often do, and by often I mean always,
Always.
with the
That is quite often.
biggest, yeah, the biggest domestic openings of this
Oh
month.
yeah.
Meaning, of course, and this is a good disclaimer to get off right off the top here. Any film that released on Christmas Day, that'd be December 25th, we counted the 5-day release
Yeah.
window for that. So the 25th to the 29th, which would be that Sunday, since Christmas is
Yes.
on a Wednesday this year. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you'll see something quite shocking there. Of course, Sonic the Hedgehog at number one, or Sonic the Hedgehog 3 at number one, unsurprisingly, with $60 million. But then quite a shock there with that 5-day window. Nosferatu at number two
Yeah.
with $40.8 million
Mm-hmm.
in its 5-day weekend.
Yeah.
So, very
Versus
impressive stats
Mufasa
there.
the Lion King at 35, which is a 3-day window. And so the movies were or Mufasa is a much higher grossing movie than Nosferatu, but based on the windows that we're talking about in this specific
Hmm.
instance, it gets a little bit maybe a little bit confusing, but also hey, I am perfectly okay to put Nosferatu above Mufasa the Lion King in any
Yeah,
situation I
yeah.
can. I
Exactly,
take that
exactly.
opportunity every day of the week.
Hmm. Another 5-day window there at number four with A Complete Unknown at $23 million. Then bringing up the rear is Kraven the Hunter, which opened in the middle of the month with $11 million.
Sure. Yeah. And then if we take a look, we have the bottom of the top 10. I always forget about
Yes.
that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pushpa 2 at number 6, Baby Girl at number 7, Homestead at number 8, Interstellar's re-release at number 9, and rounding out the top 10, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which
That's
we
right.
got a chance to see and review. And just as a note, if you're new here on this show, when we go through these movies one by one, you will see in the bottom corner a little circle with a number in it that will be reflective of our scores that we gave
That's right.
the movies. And just so if you're like, oh, you don't waste your time going to watch all our reviews, which by the way I get it. You can always get a quick and easy little circle that tells you exactly what you need to know. Number much more important than the critical analysis, Tanner. That's what I
That's
always
right.
said.
That's right. All right, Tucker. So let's also take a look at what we thought would shake out at the box office this month. Our
Yeah.
predictions that we did at the end of the November
Mm,
episode. We both actually no. I had Sonic at number one. You went with Mufasa
I did.
there.
Yeah.
At the time, didn't seem unreasonable that those would be quite close. I think I actually let me pull up my numbers here because I said they would be opening quite
Yeah.
similarly.
Yeah, well, here's actually an interesting thing. I need to double check this because I like to keep a list of all of the movies that are number one at the domestic box office
Hmm.
in any given week, and it may just be that the opening weekends are slightly different for time scale or something. But when I'm on Box Office Mojo's uh, weekly highest grossing movie thing, oh, okay,
Hmm.
never mind. Oh, it updated. Yesterday it said Mufasa. And today it says
Oh,
Sonic
I
3.
see.
So that's actually very interesting. I wonder when those updated numbers came in. But it is Sonic 3 officially on the most
Well,
trusted
Tucker,
website,
I
Box
think
Office
the
Mojo.
difference may also be are you setting it to weekend or week?
I don't fucking know. I'll be actually honest.
Okay, because
Um,
yeah, Sonic.
Weeklies, whatever that means.
Yeah, that'd be the entire week. So
Yeah, yeah.
as we'll get to, Sonic and Mufasa were really duking it out, especially during the holiday week
Yep.
versus who's taking that top spot. But of course, you had Sonic there at number two. Then
Yes.
you were quite high on A Complete Unknown. Not unreasonable. I mean, we litigated all this at the end
Yeah.
of the November episode. How I didn't even maybe wasn't even going to have it on here
Yes.
in lieu of of Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim.
That would
But
have been even more embarrassing. I mean,
exactly.
I'm proud of you for prognosticating and realizing that there was a lot more appeal for Sonic versus Mufasa. I think you made the
Mhm.
much clearer decision on that. But leaving A Complete Unknown out would have, I think, and frankly, adding what was the number 10 movie would have been even like
Yeah.
that would have completely balanced that
Yes.
out. But we had the same five movies. I think we're. I mean, I'll give you the win this month, frankly,
Okay.
because you got the number one right, which I think is more important than anything else. Especially because usually that's so easy to predict. The fact that
Hmm.
we had a actually pretty close month in terms of what was going to be number one makes this a very interesting month to talk about and makes your prediction even more impressive. So take the medal that I gave you. Remember that medal that I gave you? Put that
Oh
around
yeah,
your
I'll
neck.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll maintain that. Oh, quickly, just for the record here, I was off on my predictions for what they would actually open to. I said Sonic the Hedgehog 3 would open to $80 million, ended
Mm,
up doing 60.
sure.
And then I thought Mufasa would be very close with 75. It ended up doing 35.
Yeah, wow.
It's crazy.
Huh.
And then I said Kraven the Hunter would be number three at $25 million.
11.
Yeah. Nosferatu, I said number four with 18. And again, I didn't necessarily factor in
The 5 day.
the 5 day.
Yeah, for Nosferatu. Yeah,
I think Nosferatu's 3 day was like 23 or something
sure.
like that. So, I'm trying to give
Whatever.
myself points where I can. And then a complete unknown, I said $15 million. And then
And
I ended up doing 23. So,
sure.
a little all over the shop. We can
Yeah.
tighten it up going into January. But
No, we
let's
can't.
finish up December here.
Finishing up December is going to be the rest of this video, but first we'll start with the
Yeah, that's right.
comparisons, where we look at the both the cinema scores and the Rotten Tomato scores for each of the major movies released this month. We've still got cinema scores and Rotten Tomato for Sonic 3, Complete Unknown, Mufasa, Lord of the Rings, Nosferatu, Y2K, and Kraven the Hunter. I guess we don't have Baby Girl in here. I thought we would do that, but whatever. Um,
Yeah.
we had a really, really nice even spread this month, Tanner, with two movies and an A cinema score, Sonic 3 and a Complete Note. Very big crowd pleasers. You and I both really like those movies, so it's like we totally get that. Mufasa at A minus is
Hmm.
interesting considering how it underperformed, and it certainly hasn't picked up particularly great word of mouth, even on an A minus cinema score.
Hmm.
But it did give you what you were marketed. Like they didn't hide what this movie was going
There
to be.
are singing lions in the film.
This is true. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
mostly what it is.
War of the Rohirrim at a B, I think, is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it's not lower than that. I really didn't see
I
almost
would
any
agree.
positive buzz about this.
Hmm.
But B is also not great, especially for something that's not a horror movie. Those usually get lower scores, as you can see with Nosferatu, which is a beloved film critically. But I think I haven't seen the movie yet, actually. But
Hmm.
I'm watching it in like an hour, and I'll have seen it by the time this video goes up. But I've heard that it has like an ending that people are like kind of like conflicted
No,
on.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
kind
I
of
mean,
gross or something. I don't know.
it's weird, and for the amount of like surprising general audience appeal that the general audience that it
Yeah,
brought in for its opening weekend, I
probably one
can
of the more
see why
shocking
it's
things they've seen in theaters. I don't even know what it is, but I just imagine
right,
that's true.
right.
And then
And
Craven the Hunter
then
at
yeah.
C and Y2K at C minus. That sounds about right for both of those.
Yep. It seems pretty accurate for both. And then we have your Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter
Yeah,
down at the bottom there. Craven bringing up the rear with I think it has like a 14%. Then you have some middling
that's
things
so
we're falling
bad.
in like the
Jesus.
40 to 50 with Y2K and War of the Rohirrim. And then your very well received movies of the
Yeah.
month. A Complete Unknown, Nosferatu, both
Wait,
lightly in the
you
in
don't
the
have Mufasa on there. Let's see what
Oh,
Mufasa's Rotten
oh,
Tomatoes is.
I didn't, I didn't.
Wait,
Oh
we
shoot.
have it on the thing. Hold on, we can just scroll down. God, because I
Yeah.
it's 55. Okay, in real time, everyone, you will see me add Mufasa the Lion
Oh
King.
my gosh, this
You
is
get to see how
incredible.
our graphic design skills work. Boop. It's somewhere around 10, 20, 30, 40,
Yeah, it'd
50,
be right in what the
55.
Y2K War
Yeah,
of the Rohirrim range
there we go.
there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
And
how it
then,
works, ladies and gentlemen.
quite surprisingly, Sonic the Hedgehog 3,
Yeah,
the best,
that's crazy.
most critically acclaimed movie of the year, or of the
That's
month rather.
well, I mean, one of the most acclaimed movies of the year, like
Yeah.
a 90 or above, around that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
certified fresh. Um, People love that movie, so
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly for me the surprise of the month. I think
Yeah.
on a wider level, Mufasa underperforming, as we'll certainly talk to, is
Mm.
probably the story of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Sonic 3 being the highest rated movie of the month, like, really? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun.
Okay, Tucker, let's do Y2K here in a
Yep.
second. So,
Let's not do Y2K. Let's talk about Y2K.
yeah,
If we
let's not
did
do Y2K.
Y2K, we wouldn't be recording this
Well, I
right
mean,
now.
first of all, we're a little late to
Uh
do
oh. Uh
that.
oh.
uh, so this is a release from A24, the first film for director Kyle Mooney, and it's a stinker. It's a
Yeah,
bomb.
it's a massive
Um,
bomb.
you know, uh, pretty. I mean, massive on a scale of like this thing had a budget of $15 million, and
That's
didn't get a
reasonable
whole
for the
lot of
kind of movie this is. That's a fine budget.
exactly.
I'm not going to complain about that. But clearly, they thought that this kind of tone and style would bring out a larger audience than $4 million worth of people. And obviously, also, as you can see here, no international release. Um,
Hmm.
50 million is reasonable, but it just didn't hit. And you and I watched it, and with a 3.8, we really actually didn't like it almost at all. And so that kind of tracks for us that audiences didn't glom onto it. But yeah, I'm surprised that it is this low.
Yeah, I would actually contend that maybe A24 left this one out to dry a little
Sure.
bit. They kicked this one to the curb. They knew they had Baby Girl later in the month, but I wanted to talk about this one, and not necessarily Baby Girl because that's more a more standard A24 rollout and
Sure.
moderate success. Whereas Y2K is an example of this studio really just letting something die,
Hmm.
which you don't see very often. I mean. I have a note here that it's a similar box office return to something like Lamb or Good
Hmm.
Time. I think Lamb is more interesting to compare this to
Yeah, I would agree.
as something that as another one they were just like I don't know, just put it out.
Yeah.
Um, the people like to hold up A24 as this bastion of like independent cinema, but sometimes they can just, leave things out on the
Yeah.
line business wise. And
Yeah.
Y2K is an example of that. I mean, it did receive a wide release in over 2,000 theaters, but ended up having the fourth lowest wide opening of the year.
That's really
However,
bad. No, I can't
A24
guess who the other
has
ones are.
A24 has two movies in this top five, the low
Bottom
five
five?
there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, did I even see the other one?
You did. We saw it together.
We saw it together. That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
It's
It's like a horror comedy, like this one is, I guess, but like less overtly comedy than this. It was like a weird like September release, I want to say.
my brain's not operating.
It's the front room. It's the front
Oh,
room.
that's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did
Yeah.
see that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot better than the movie than Y2K is. Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Uh yeah, Y2K opened to number 8 in
Yeah.
its first weekend. Obviously it had its competition cut out
Yeah.
for it with holdovers from Thanksgiving,
Yeah. Yeah.
Moana,
Yeah.
and Wicked and Gladiator. But number 8 is still pretty atrocious.
It is. Yes, and it's already available on VOD at the time of recording. Only
Hmm.
took less than 3 weeks to release on VOD, which I think is actually kind of rare for A24. I don't really
Yeah.
usually hear quick turnaround time on their VOD releases, but I think this just goes to show what on their scale how big of a failure it is. So
Hmm.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Kyle Mooney can get another movie out of this. I'm sure at some point he'll direct another film, but
Hmm.
this is not a strong start to a career. This does not make.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. We didn't necessarily like the movie, and we seem to be in the overarching
Yeah.
commanding opinion there with a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 5.2, and a C minus cinema score. So, but it's unfortunate to see this thing put in like this dead area
Yeah,
of the first week of December by A24.
definitely.
Regardless, let's move on to what was maybe hoping to be, or Sony was sort of looking to have a bigger success in something like Kraven the Hunter.
Yes. Kraven the
So,
Hunter at as we discussed, 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.5 IMDb, C
mhm.
Cinema score,
Skin
uh,
score.
on a budget of $120 million.
Hmm.
Kraven the Hunter, as of now, has grossed $52 million. It's not left theaters, I don't think.
No, it is still in theaters.
Yeah, so I would say probably it's got another week, a week and a half, maybe two, maybe three if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
lucky, in like these like outskirts theaters that are still
Mhm.
scrounging for films. I would say it's lucky to crack 65
Yeah,
worldwide at the end of its
yeah.
run, which would mean less than half or about half of its production budget, not even factoring in print and
Yeah, I
advertising.
mean, yeah, P&A is probably going to be fairly high on this since they had to kind of mount like two marketing pushes
Yeah.
for this
Hmm.
since this was pushed back an entire year and a half
Yeah.
from its initial release date. So I'd say your budget with marketing included is probably 200 plus.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have your first note here that says it debuted in 3,200 theaters, which is the fewest of any Marvel film in over 20 years. Which just goes to
Yeah,
show that for the most part, almost every Marvel film that releases, even if they're not great, are ones that studios have massive confidence in, and they're like, well, we just
yeah.
need to put this on every screen, just make sure anyone can see it, who wants to see it can. Now, that's not to say 3,200 theaters is a few amount of
It
theaters.
is still a very wide
Yeah,
release for a
it's
film.
just a funny how small the scale is for Marvel
Uh-huh.
movies or films based on Marvel properties. Where it's like, well, they're always the biggest things, and that this, even though it's a massive number, is the lowest. Shows that even for a studio that
Mhm.
has made a bunch of Marvel movies at this point, Sony is like, look, like we know this is not going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It is, of course, the third Spunk movie this year, and
Jesus.
may have killed the Sony Pictures universe of
Yeah.
Marvel characters. We can talk about this since we're on Kraven.
Sure.
It is the lowest grossing Marvel movie ever,
Yeah.
adjusted for inflation. Which is, I mean, hey, it's something. It's something for Kraven.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. That is a
so
feather in that hunter's cap there.
It's right in the lion vest. So yes, I have here this final Spunk film, or is it? Because there
Okay.
was this whole
Yeah.
article that was released basically a week after the Craven debacle, after its debut in theaters, where it opened to $11 million. And this is a quote from a Sony film executive where he's talking about largely their film output this year, where he said it's snake bitten. If we put one out, a movie out, it's going to get destroyed no matter how good or bad it is. Sort of lambasting the critical reception of the Sony
I
Pictures
just wanted to put
universe.
on a hoodie.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm still talking, so don't worry about it.
I can hear you.
Uh,
My
okay,
cord is
perfect.
long enough.
Oh, nice. Lambasting the critical reception of these
Yeah.
films as a whole. And also, this article seemed to imply that, yes, they are not done making Marvel movies. They still want to retain the rights to this, of course.
Yeah.
But what I have interpreted that, loose message as is anything that Sony puts out in the future, in the coming years anyway, will be like Spider-Man specifically
Yeah.
branded.
Yeah.
Because it was also revealed that they could just have been putting Spider-Man in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could have put Spider-Man, a new Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man. If they of course had to reach a deal with him to star in the
Yeah.
film if they wanted him. But like
And that would
they could
have
have
that
put
would have increased the budget of that movie. Jesus.
exactly. But they could have been putting Spider-Man as a character in any of these movies
Yeah.
since, they started back in 2018 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And they just chose not to, which is
I don't know, man.
interesting. I'm sure there was some sort of handshake agreement with Kevin Feige and the folks over at Marvel Studios proper
Yeah.
about this, but about, not confusing the general audiences by having multiple Spider-Men. But I imagine that anything going forward will be Spider-Man, Spider-Woman,
Yeah.
Spider-Man, Miles Morales, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know the only upcoming project they still have aside from like Beyond the Spider-Verse is this Spider-Man noir
Yeah.
television series at Amazon.
And also not counting Spider-Man 4, the MCU movie.
Of course, yeah,
Um,
that's right. Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
So they still have some Marvel projects in the works, but it'd be very interesting to see if this style of movie is able to crawl its way back. We are in an interesting time period for superhero films where we're waiting on bated breath for what the next like big gasp of air for both Marvel and DC is going to be, and if that we can actually regain momentum in those areas. And Sony has really almost never had momentum with their movies outside of the Spider Verse, and I was just thinking about the fact that like this is a short-lived um, film cinematic universe, but then I was saying to myself
Mhm.
like it also just kind of really isn't a cinematic universe. There are six
No,
movies in this quote
right?
unquote series.
Over 6 years.
That's a good point. Yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't because three of them were released in 1 year. Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. So we caught up real quick there.
Uh,
But only two-thirds of those movies reference the fact that they're in a cinematic universe at all, and so there's actually no proof that either Kraven the Hunter or Madam Web actually take place in the same universe as
nope.
the Morbius or the Venom trilogy. And Morbius is also a funny one because that's only tangentially connected because Morbius references Venom. It's not like we
Right.
see Tom Hardy. So
Yep.
this is a shit show all around. And Tanner, can I propose
Yep.
something now? And you can shut me down if we need to. Uh,
Okay.
Shirtless Spunk rank off.
Oh, sure. Hey, you know what?
Retrospective
That's
of
fine.
Spunk like we did with the DCEU last year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's also interesting that the DCEU last year also sputtered out with like just put the last 3 films out in a
That's a great
year and
point.
then
No, four.
and call it it's a four? Oh yeah. What was it?
Shazam,
Shazam,
Blue Beetle,
Flash. Oh, Blue Beetle. I forgot about
Flash,
Blue
and
Beetle
Aquaman.
and
Yeah,
Aquaman. Yeah.
yeah.
Forgot about yeah. All right. Well,
They tried the
hey.
shotgun approach.
Uh-huh. If the MCU ever releases 3 years, 3 movies in a year, that's how you know they're cooked.
Uh let's move
And
on
yeah.
to The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Hearing, which actually I think parallels Craven in an interesting way in that
Yes.
this is a film very much made to retain rights for an IP.
Hmm.
Notoriously, this was a movie that was quite rushed in its production because Warner Brothers needs to maintain the rights to making theatrically released Lord of the Rings films. And
Hmm.
they did that, and it came out, and no one gave a shit, and it wasn't very good. And so it
Yeah.
feels very much like that.
Yeah, it's so similar to things we've been talking about with like Y2K or Craven, even just being like, I don't know, throw it out like middle of December, kind of hang this thing out to dry just because we need to retain the rights. So we need a theatrically released Lord of the Rings branded film
Yeah,
to do that, as they are pushing now new live action Lord of
that's
the
true.
Rings films into pre-production. The Hunt for Gollum, I believe, is dated for December 2026 or
Yeah,
27.
26, I think.
Um,
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, this film was announced in June of 2021. Animation work was completed October of this year. So that's, they completed this in 3 years, and I was reading along that producers or animators familiar with like feature length animated projects are like, yeah, usually it takes like 5 to 7 years to do
Yeah.
something of this scope and size and length.
Yeah.
And they did it in three, and you can feel that. You can feel it in the story structure, as the like main Lord of the Rings like writing team. There's some people that were on like the initial Peter Jackson trilogy, of course, and the Hobbit trilogy. They were being like pulled off of this to work on like the Hunt for Gollum,
That's interesting.
etc.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize there was like actually similar writing team working on all of this because
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like these are the same people that wrote like Fellowship of the Ring.
Right, exactly, exactly, and for good reason, because they were pulled off of this to start working on like the actual one that's coming out in a couple
Mm.
years. So yeah, this is another scenario where this was put on VOD after 2 weeks of
Good God,
theatrical
man.
release.
Oh my
Two
God.
weeks in theaters before it was on VOD on
Yeah.
December
Huh.
27th. So yeah, bad stuff all around. I mean, hey, it was they operated on a pretty light on its feet budget of $30 million, but
That's
it's
crazy.
it's maybe it'll maybe crack 20.
Yeah. Well, no, is it even still in theaters?
It's still in theaters,
Okay.
yes. But that VOD certainly can cut into things.
Yeah.
But like I think anyone who's going to go see this, anyone who's interested in like the uh the Lord of the Rings brand has
Yeah.
probably seen
Oh,
this
totally,
already,
totally. And
or
it's
will
obviously just
likely just wait till it's on like HBO Max or whatever.
yes, which it will be probably pretty soon. And
Yeah.
it just goes to show that the Lord of the Rings IP, especially with Rings of Power being something that people are quite mixed on, and
Hmm.
then this, which people are quite mixed on, and more so, nobody really cares or knew about it. It goes to show that the hardcore Lord of the Rings fan base really hasn't like hung on very well. I mean,
That's true.
it's been a long time since it was like sincerely relevant. Even with the Hobbit
Hmm.
trilogy, that fell off as those movies came out, and
Yeah.
so we're going on a decade without like Lord of the Rings being like something that is actually culturally dominant. And I don't think the Hunt for Gollum is really going to help that. And
Yeah.
we also had the Lord
It'll.
of Ring Gollum game released last year, and that was one of the
Yeah.
most notorious failures of last year. So
I will be fascinated to see how they try to mount like nostalgia for the series. I mean, they are like extremely popular films
yeah, of
still.
course.
The re-releases that happened last year were very well documented successes and like, sort of like set records for re-releases in theaters. But I don't know. I think the nostalgia factor will help. I believe the bringing back I believe they're going to bring back Viggo Mortensen as well.
Mm,
It's sounding like.
okay.
I don't know if that's finalized, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not exactly talking about a loose and free theatrical window
Yeah.
next holiday season.
Sure.
So yeah,
Well, no,
okay.
2 years from now.
Well, Tucker, behind the baseball, we're recording this on New Year's Eve, so we're
Oh,
basically
next year. Oh, I see. Oh, you're
uh,
saying like, oh, we're putting this up in 2025, so it actually is next year, 2026.
yeah,
Holy
yeah,
shit, this
yeah.
guy's thinking 3 steps ahead of me.
40 chess,
Moving
40
on
chess. Okay,
to
yes,
Mufasa, The Lion King, released on December 20th, 2024, and directed by Best Picture winner Barry Jenkins.
true, true.
Mufasa Lion King, on a budget of $200 million, has already made in just like a week and a half $327 million. This movie is
Hmm.
not a money loser. It is a step down in terms of popularity from
Of
The Lion
course.
King 2019. But this is not actually a failure. No
No,
matter how much you didn't like this movie, we can't just be like, hey, like this is
no,
a
yeah, of
tank.
course. It was like a bit. There was some apprehension when it first came out, though, especially domestically. I
Yeah.
mean, it did not open to number one domestically. It lost that title to Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It opened to $35 million. Tucker, you have it here. The Lion King 2019 opened to $191 million.
That's
I did the
so
math
much
there, crunched the
money.
numbers. It opened, that's 81.5% less than the first film's
Oh my
opening.
god.
It is insanity, like how
Yeah.
how how much lower this thing
Yeah.
opened. But then, lo and behold, it was a holiday player. I think Disney was maybe obviously anticipating that this wouldn't be as successful as
Of
2019's
course.
Lion King,
Yes.
a film that made $1.6
Yes.
billion dollars.
And you can tell that they weren't expecting that because this movie actually cost significantly less than The Lion King
Yeah.
2019, down from 260 million to 200 million, which is still one of the biggest budget movies of the year. But like
Hmm.
260, like $60 million is the budget of like two or three other movies.
Yeah, yeah. I also saw some speculation that like marketing push wasn't especially strong for this because
Hmm.
Disney basically had a month to make it its main focus after the release of Moana 2.
Oh, interesting.
Um, yeah,
Hmm.
so that could be it. And then this film does hold quite well over the holiday weekend, and I mean one of the rare instances of growing in its following weekend. But it was up 4% over that Christmas weekend,
Yeah.
making $36.8 million during Christmas week. So yeah, I mean, what was a good bet to put this over holidays
Yeah.
because it was time more families are going to get out. They've already seen Sonic, so I don't know, go
Yeah.
check out Mufasa. They just were more interested in seeing Sonic first,
Yes,
apparently.
yes, and this movie will, both of those movies, as we'll get to Sonic in a second, will hold totally fine over the course of the next month. January emptied out more than we thought it was going to be a couple months ago, and we'll talk
Hmm.
about that at the end of this video as well. But I see Mufasa Lion King making $550 million, something like that, like easily doubling its market, its production budget, covering the print and advertising as well. Like, and this movie's going to be a very solid, probably big success on Disney Plus later down the line. Like this is a comfortable, successful movie for them. It is interesting that we only categorize it as like a failure, based on it's a step down from one of the highest grossing movies of all time, being
Right.
its predecessor, I guess. I mean, it's a prequel, but you know what we're saying.
Hmm.
But it also is interesting to see over the course of the last year or so, a lot of those 2019 major movie making movies make sequels that would be surefire hits that just don't. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, The Marvels,
Hmm.
Joker Folie à Deux, Mufasa the Lion
Yes.
King. We are
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
a cold streak. We're not on a hot streak anymore. We're like,
Yeah.
hey, you don't remember those movies that made $1 billion in 2019? What if no one cared anymore?
Oh. Okay. Well, Tucker Hollywood's in a bad spot if sequels aren't making money anymore. And of course, that's not what we're saying. But
No,
like, it is interesting that like
it's an interesting pattern.
a sequel to $1 billion movie is proving to be maybe more of a risky venture
Yeah.
in the 2020s.
Hmm.
What else do I want? Oh, I want to mention here, of course, that domestically it's maybe not as huge of a hit, but it is still doing massive
Oh, yeah.
numbers
Hmm.
internationally. It was number one worldwide during its opening weekend. And then, of course, its second international weekend was bigger than Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So, to clarify, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 opened internationally in many markets a week after its domestic debut. So, what would that be? Like December 27th is Sonic the Hedgehog 3's international debut. And the second week of Mufasa was bigger than that.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
But now, Tanner, we
yeah.
probably don't have to talk about these goddamn lions again. I mean, actually, I don't know. They might make a third one. Who the fuck knows? I mean, like in this movie, Mufasa the Lion King, it's about Simba's daughter technically in like the frame narrative, and I don't know if
Oh,
that's like
yeah.
I don't know if that's them trying to set up for a movie about her. Um, I don't know, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
We'll
I wouldn't
see.
be actually honest. I started this like we don't have to talk about these lions again. I wouldn't be surprised if they announce a third live
I mean,
action
yeah,
Lion King
this
adjacent
will
film.
still be profitable for Disney,
Yeah,
and I think they'll probably still focus on doing remakes instead of sequels to their
yeah,
remakes, more than anything else. But Tucker, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Let's do a mini Blue Blur Blanter here.
yeah,
So, opened over Christmas overseas, as I just said, and speaking of, it didn't get that number one worldwide
yeah.
release or worldwide title that opened overseas, but
Hmm.
it did open 83% ahead of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Just goes to show
That's
how this
crazy.
series, yeah, it goes to show how much the popularity of the series has exploded. Its domestic opening was $60 million,
Hmm.
which is big. It is a dominant force for like family movie going this year.
Yeah,
It also helps that it's holding quite well because it reviewed quite well, as
yeah.
we said.
Hmm.
88% on Rotten Tomatoes for a fucking Sonic movie.
Yeah, that's 20 points higher than the Rotten
Yeah,
Tomatoes of the second movie, which I believe was also higher than the Rotten Tomatoes of the first movie. So this has
yeah,
certainly climbed. The cinema score has maintained quite steady. I believe they actually, all three of them, have an A cinema score.
yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting to see a franchise that started this decade, a film franchise that started this, obviously not a
Mm-hmm.
franchise that started this decade, but
Preceded COVID.
yeah, true. Yes, but still started this decade. That was a
Mm-hmm.
2020 release of the first film. Grow in popularity. I mean, we've seen a lot of sequels, a lot of reboots, a lot of IP stuff in this decade. And a lot of people have been saying like, where are the successful, popular new IPs that aren't just like basing yourself off of like nostalgia from a long time ago? The interesting thing about the Sonic the Hedgehog movies is even though they're based on a almost 30-year-old game series, they actually
Mm-hmm.
don't really play too much into like the nostalgia bait. There are like hints and references for longtime fans, but
Yeah, yeah.
this is it's a new identity for Sonic. There's like new side characters with the human characters and things, and it's not the story is different from the game. So I think they actually did a really good job at creating a new modern identity for Sonic and finding a audience in children that can
Hmm.
buoy the Sonic IP back up to top of the industry prominence, which had certainly not been the case for especially in the game sphere for most of the 21st century.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that this has grown, and also I'm happy that that especially with the third one gotten a lot better. And so
Hmm.
now I'm like actually cautiously optimistic for the fourth movie, which they already announced.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah. I have done it. They're already in production on a fourth film. It's targeting a spring 2027 release.
yeah, which means they've
Which
already been in production on that movie, pre-production,
exactly.
of course. But like
No, of course.
they knew that this was going to happen, and so I wouldn't be surprised if like the contract for everyone's like performances in that were signed like a year ago.
Of course, yeah. It passed. Tucker, you mentioned that first film back from 2020. It passed the domestic total of that
Whoa!
2020 film in its first 10 days of
Wow!
release.
Wow!
Yeah,
That's impressive. Now, of course, caveat being that movie
of
released
course.
as theaters were shutting down.
Hmm.
But so it was one of the highest grossing movies of 2020. It's not a big bar to climb.
Yeah.
But that is just an interesting superlative to also just show by comparison how much the appetite for the series has grown over the course of the
Hmm.
last few years.
Yeah, yeah. And I say spring 2027 release. This it doesn't have an exact release date, but also it's interesting that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 or Sonic the Hedgehog as a film franchise has grown to the size that it's like well, they could plant down any release date and
Yeah.
whatever's there is
Hmm.
going to move.
Yeah.
Um, it has grown to that like gargantuan titan status of
Yeah.
like a Marvel's or something like I don't even know like a fucking Minecraft movie or a Super Mario Bros movie or
Well,
whatever
yeah. I mean,
where they can plant their flag.
that spring slot actually has become a pretty
A
consistent window to open a movie in. Obviously, Mario movie in 2023 being one of the biggest movies
mhm.
of all time in that slot, and it's I guess we're actually looking, Tanner, at
Yeah.
3 years in a row coming up of big video game adaptation movies
Yes.
taking that slot. Minecraft next year, Mario movie 2 the year after that, and then Sonic the Hedgehog
Hmm.
4 following that up. So we'll see if this momentum carries for
That's true.
any and all of these video game
Yeah.
adaptations. And also, I believe I believe it's the like second highest grossing video game adaptation movie at this point.
Oh,
Or it
sure. Yeah,
certainly
yeah,
will
yeah.
end up that way. It's not going to outgross Mario, but
Hmm.
good for Sonic.
Yep.
Always playing second fiddle to the Red Plumber, but he's
Well, hey,
doing the work.
I was gonna say, Tucker, you mentioned the the game sphere of Sonic hasn't been able to grab audiences as much as the film side. Now it's just up to Sega Games area to catch up to the
Yes,
work that the film
this is
side
true.
is putting in.
Yeah.
What other Sega franchises will be ported over to the film to the silver screens?
I mean, dude, a Yakuza movie would be pretty goddamn cool. Not gonna lie.
Shenmue?
Hey, that's a great pull. I didn't know you were aware of Shenmue.
Yeah, well,
Congratulations. Very proud of you.
Funhouse played is it?
Oh, fuck. Okay. Let's talk about A Complete Unknown. Which
Hmm.
is this an accurate total? I mean, I guess the movie's only been out for
Yeah,
like 5 days,
its
but
opening weekend. It's
yeah.
opening weekend. Yeah.
So an opening weekend of $23 million on a budget of $65 million, which is really nice and conservative for a movie like this. Um,
Mhm.
this is a solid opening. 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like people are quite enjoying it, and it'll be interesting to see if this passion for the movie grows. I think it'll have very good word of mouth. I don't think it'll hold great
I think
into
so too.
January, and I think that momentum might carry it into the award season in a pretty strong
Of
way.
course. Yeah, this thing will probably, this is pure speculation as to where it'll end up because this is one of the few instances where we're like recording this so close to a film's
Yeah.
release. It's hasn't even been in theaters for a week,
Hmm.
which maybe egg on our face. But if we want to speculate, this thing will probably end up making I don't know 70-ish maybe domestically,
Hmm.
and then it will probably mount some sort of international release in the coming weeks. I would have to
Oh
assume.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Even though Bob Dylan maybe isn't like a huge internationally known figure, but still. And then of course, yeah, we'll get a second boost when Timothée Chalamet inevitably gets his Oscar nomination
Yeah.
for this film,
Hmm.
potentially even a Best Picture nomination for this film going along with it. So
Yeah.
those award season re-releases always really boost films, especially like this that already have a pretty solid general audience
Yeah.
appeal. I have down here that the opening weekend demographics were 51% female,
Hmm.
45% under the age
Interesting.
of 35.
Hmm.
Um, which is sort of antithetical a little bit to what I was saying when we talked about this at the end of November, where I was like, I don't know, do young people care about a complete unknown?
Hmm.
But it seems as though the next hash mark under that 36% of people cited Timothy Chalamet as
Yeah.
their primary reason for going to see the
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is exciting. I think this is really really interesting because it shows that the trend over the course of the last year is that people actually will go see a movie for Timothy Chalamet, and
mhm.
that's something that hasn't happened too often in the course of the last decade or so. And he is going to be on a very interesting tear over the course of the next few years. He has
Yes.
movies confirmed for like holiday releases for the next like 4 years or something ridiculous like
Hmm.
that. And so this is only going to help if he gets Oscar buzz. It's only going to help. Next winter he's already got one. Wonka is only growing in popularity. Dune's only growing in popularity. I mean, this guy is the star of the 2020s. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's just
He
fun to see
is.
it happening.
This is sorry, sprinkling some award speculation into our box office talk, so I apologize, Tucker.
No,
Uh, but like,
never the twain shall
is
meet, Tanner.
is mounting a pretty solid campaign to be now the youngest Best
Yeah,
Actor winner ever,
yeah,
beating out Adrian Brody, who is also in the race this year,
sure.
and who he'd be snatching the award away
Yeah,
from,
yeah, it's funny.
essentially. Um, but going back to box office talk for a second, I do want to note that this is the biggest opening for excuse me, Searchlight
Yes,
Pictures since their 2019 acquisition by Disney.
yes.
In the second biggest Searchlight opening ever, back when they
Oh,
were owned by 20th Century Fox, behind the Notorious from 2009, another music biopic.
what the fuck is Notorious? I only know
About
the Alfred Hitchcock one. I'm like, is that a remake that I'd never heard about? What the hell?
It's about Notorious B.I.G.
Oh, huh. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. I never heard about that. But
yeah.
it is. I think it's very important that you stipulated the Searchlight element there because even though I guess I wasn't really aware of like how relatively small Searchlight's openings usually are. Because I thought this was going to be obviously based on like how high I put it in my predictions. Like the
Hmm.
next Rocket Man, the next Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that, or Elvis. And it's not, but it also is given that it's the biggest Searchlight opening in a while. It's like for that studio, which is the most important thing is to compare within a studio. This is a big hit for them, and I think it'll only grow in popularity and acclaim. So, yeah, good on them. And also, director James Mangold, we did the comparison down there to Ford v Ferrari from 2019.
Hmm.
We did that because his last movie, Dial of Destiny, is in such a different camp that it's a little bit more fair to compare his movies that are more quote unquote words baity are based on real history and things. And Ford v Ferrari was a massive hit, and I don't
It
think that
was.
Complete Unknown will necessarily catch that, but it shows that James Mangold. I think this is going to be the area that he settles into. Of course, he has done franchise fare, multiple Marvel movies, an Indiana Jones movie, but I
Hmm.
think he sees his best creative and commercial success in this area where he can just like
Hmm.
make biopics.
Sure, sure. Or a Wolverine movie,
That's
whatever he
true.
wants
Logan
to
is
do. Yeah.
good. I love that movie.
Yes. Okay, Tucker, Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
The film that you will be seeing in approximately 2 hours
Sure.
here has made a very surprising splash at the box office,
Yeah.
opening to $40 million over its 5-day opening weekend on a budget of 50, which ain't cheap for a horror movie if we're
Yeah.
looking at the genre as it usually exists at the
Hmm.
box office. But also this is a very different type of
Yeah.
horror movie. This ain't your daddy's Nosferatu, okay? This one's in color. Uh,
Wow.
All right. So this has become
Also,
Robert
if your
Eggers.
daddy, if he, if your daddy's Nosferatu is like the 1922 one, your dad's old as fuck.
Well, yeah, I suppose your daddy's Nosferatu would be the one from the 70s by
Yes,
Werner
sure.
Herzog, but I
Yes.
digress. Anyway, this became Robert Eggers' highest-grossing film in just 5 days, surpassing, I believe, the Northman was holding that title before, which totaled actually what's going on
Wait,
here?
how did you?
What?
Did you? The superlative was
Domestically
okay.
is
All right.
because that's the
Of
worldwide
course it
total
is.
I
Yeah, the
put down
total.
there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Anywho's yeah, because the Northman made like $36 million
Gotcha.
domestically.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tucker, this is a big hit, especially for the youngsters. The young folk are going out to see this thing. They want to succumb to Count Orlok.
Yeah, sure.
65% of the opening weekend demographics were aged 18 to 34.
Yeah, and even though I haven't seen this, I'm very confident that I will like this movie a lot. Actually, the original movie that I was just lightly making fun of for being old is one of my favorite horror movies ever. I think that movie's really remarkable.
It's
And
great.
Robert Eggers is a director whose work I've quite enjoyed in the past, and this is a match made in heaven. And I think it was really smart by Eggers and the production studio to position this as a tentpole horror movie. And clearly they budgeted for that and they marketed it for that. But I don't know what the special sauce is here that makes a Nosferatu Christmas release,
Yeah,
a very big deal, and a competitive deal. It's duking it out with Sonic and Mufasa as
yeah.
it's not the number one of the weekend, but like it's certainly in that conversation and much closer than I think maybe I would have
It got a lot
predicted it.
closer than anyone would have
Yeah,
predicted. I believe projections for this were in like the $25 million
yeah,
range. And Tucker, to your point, the idea of making this a Christmas release. I have this quote from Lisa Bunnell, I
Bunnel.
don't know,
Mm.
who is the head of distribution for Focus Features, the studio behind
Yeah,
Nosferatu. She said that exhibitors, the theater companies, were taken aback that they
yeah.
were going to release this film on Christmas Day.
Hmm.
But it is a gamble that paid off in a big way because it defeated the Faculty from 1998 as the
That's such a
highest
long time
grossing
ago.
Christmas Day release for a genre film, sci-fi, horror, whatever you want to lump
Hmm.
into the genre. But like this smashed that record
Hmm.
hugely. So there is an
It smashed it
appetite.
hugely.
Yeah, that's right. An insatiable appetite for horror gothic stuff on Christmas,
Yeah.
apparently. Because it's not even like Nosferatu marketing was everywhere.
Hmm.
It's simply that this made an impression on people
Yep.
with the faces attached for sure. The Lighthouse and the Witch and even the Northman to an extent have become these hits on VOD and streaming and things like that. And so
Yeah.
people were primed and ready for a more standard vampire movie period piece
Yeah.
that looks a lot different than any other horror movie that's been coming out in recent years.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see it. And I'm really excited that it is this big. This is a movie that I think will have great word of mouth and hold very well. And do we know Egger's next movie already, right?
I think he said that his next one is going to be a western,
Oh, yeah,
but
that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's also had a
Wait,
script for
isn't Ari
the
Aster's next movie a Western?
yes, I think so.
Oh, are they both doing that? Oh, come on, guys.
Maybe. I don't know,
Maybe the
but
Western's coming back after the Rocking Excessive Horizon American Saga Chapter 1.
that's true. That's true. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, but he's also had this script for The Night for a
Oh,
long
yeah,
time,
yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe he could do that as well. I'm not,
Maybe
but I
that's a
think in
Western.
an interview, yeah.
You don't see a lot of
But
medieval Westerns.
no, not a lot of mixing of those two, honestly. But he's also said he has like 5 scripts ready to make into
Yeah, yeah.
movies. So hey, give him unlimited costume budgets. That's what I say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Roll out the whole entire theater department for this guy. Any costumes you want to put on people, let him have at it.
Let's start closing things out as we take a look at the last time on Backlight Banter as we talk about the movies that released in November and we see where they've ended up after
Mhm.
a full month for a lot of these. Heretic started in week 4 when we talked about it last at $38 million and has climbed its way to 45, and I believe it's basically done by now. But that is
Yep.
solid for that movie.
Yeah.
Red
The movie
One,
had like a $10 million budget too.
yeah,
So yeah.
big hit for them. Red One, Tanner, gotta give
Yeah.
props where it's due. From week 3 to week 7, almost doubled the amount of money that movie
It's
held
true.
way fucking better than we would have predicted at week 3.
Listen, the gambit from Amazon MGM paid off where they're like, just keep it in theaters over Christmas. Just keep it in theaters over Christmas.
Yeah.
It'll make money. It'll make money. And it did. It is also on Amazon Prime. You can
Yeah.
watch it on Amazon Prime right now. Not even VOD, paid VOD. You can, if you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can watch it. Which is honestly how I've been hearing a lot of people, both
Yeah.
in my life and on Twitter, saying like, hey, my family members watched Red One and they said it was pretty good.
Yeah, I
Which
mean
is
that's damning.
surprising.
That's damning
Yeah.
for them, frankly. That's a self-report that
Yeah.
I wouldn't do.
Right.
But yeah, interesting that this is kind of turning itself around. I don't. At the end of the day, this is not a. It's not a profitable
Yeah,
venture
didn't
for the
this
Amazon
had a
Corporation.
this is $250 million
Yeah, no.
production alone.
Yeah, so it's not a profitable. And a lot of marketing for this one. I still have Red
boy.
One standees and like fucking icy shit and like.
Do you have the stickers on the mirrors in your bathroom?
No, I don't.
Theater?
People have been talking about those, but no, I don't have
Yeah,
those.
yeah. Okay. Those are still up when I was seeing Complete Unknown and everything. I was like, yeah, guys, gotta take these down.
Yeah. Oh, also another interesting thing about Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
Did you experience the extended trailer thing?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
Because we have 3 separate reports from me, from Abram, and from friend of the show Grace Randolph. I don't know her. I just wanted to say that that there was like a lot more ads and trailers before A Complete Unknown. I was
Interesting.
complaining about that, and then Abram just out of nowhere said it, and then on Twitter yesterday, Grace was
Now,
like,
was it the case for like any? Was it the case for you at like Baby Girl?
"No,
Interesting, because my initial thought would be like not maybe a complete unknown thing, but like a holiday thing from theater chains,
didn't
you know,
happen
to
for Sonic. Didn't happen for Baby Girl. I haven't seen Nosferatu yet. Didn't happen for Mufasa. No, this is
yeah.
just a weird thing.
Hmm.
But
Interesting.
moving on to the big three of last month: Wicked, Gladiator 2, and Moana 2. Wicked has made $635 million. Its reign continues to
That's
build.
right.
And I don't know where this is going to end. Obviously, this movie is still in theaters, and I'm sure it's going to hold.
Still doing very well.
Yeah,
And again, we were just talking about this with a complete unknown is gonna get an award season push. I
yeah,
mean, they pushed it out again over Christmas with the sing along
yeah,
cut
yeah,
or the
yeah.
sing
Very
along
smart.
version of it. And then we'll get its Best Picture nominee screenings at theaters across the country
Yeah.
in a couple months or so. So yeah. Then you have Gladiator 2, which has made $435 million in total worldwide.
Yeah,
Doesn't share the same like exclamatory success of
yeah.
Wicked or Moana in that way, but obviously still a very big hit for Paramount.
Yeah, and
Um,
for Ridley Scott, who's a guy who's been working
yeah,
in the industry for 40 years or whatever, this is one of its highest grossing movies.
yes,
Like, it's not even close. And so you have to look at it within its own context. I think it looks a little bit sadder in comparison to Wicked and Moana 2. But when you look at it in the context of the career of a director who's been working on big movies for a long time, this is
hmm
actually something that is quite successful for him. And
hmm
I don't know if this is good momentum that he's going to be able to continue to future projects
Hey, it
necessarily.
was apparently good enough box office results for him to say they're making Gladiator 3.
Yeah, which would certainly be very interesting, and I think
Hmm
a quicker turnaround time on obviously the third part of that series, I think
It's not
would.
going to take another 25 years, you don't
I
think?
think no, he won't be alive, Tanner.
What?
But I'm sorry to break the news to you, buddy.
Well, we got to make Cyber Ridley Scott.
That's true, so he can continue
Yeah,
forever. But I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that there's a chance that Gladiator 3, I think, Gladiator 2, I think will be big on VOD. And I
hmm
think that if they are able to not fast track Gladiator 3, but get it out within 3 or 4 years or something like that, I think that could be some good momentum building to actually then end up partially closer recapturing the success of that first movie, which is what they're trying
hmm
to do here.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, you just have Moana 2 like doubling its box office results
man,
since we last talked about it at $883 million worldwide. On the hunt to get in like the probably pushing like 950, maybe
yeah,
even a billion.
I think it's possible. I think it's very
Yeah.
possible, especially given they've been given the widest open sea for animated movies. The
Oh
next
yeah.
major animated movie isn't until DreamWorks Dogman, which we'll talk about in a second, which releases at the
hmm
end of next month. Or this month, I guess if the video comes out in January. Fuck
End
you,
of
you know what I'm saying.
January. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so this is going to be the movie that families see for the entirety of January as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mufasa hasn't heard it.
No.
Sonic 3 hasn't
Oh, I'm
really heard
sorry. I
it.
forgot about
So,
Sonic. I mean, that'll
mhm,
that'll that's a nice pairing for the next
mhm.
month for family
Yes.
movies.
All right, Tucker, let's talk about the real important stuff. What did we think of the
Yep.
movies of this December versus December 2023? And unfortunately, we had two stinkers as opposed to one stinker
Mm,
from last year, so
yeah.
dragged down our average to a 6.28.
Yeah.
Even though
And I would
we
say,
had
Tanner, no
yeah,
stinkers in 2022's December of those five movies we have there. I like all of
true,
those movies quite a
true.
bit. I mean, Violent Night's
Um,
certainly like the bottom in my estimation, but even that's like
mhm.
that's a fun movie.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, I guess last year also had some films that
Oh yeah,
we reviewed quite well,
yeah,
including a rare 9+ score from
yep.
us at Godzilla -1,
That movie's awesome,
and
man.
then
I was just
yeah,
singing the
so fucking good.
Godzilla theme at dinner last night.
Yeah. And even like our middling movies were better reviewed than like War of the Rohirrim, last year's
Yeah,
Anyone But You and Wonka are better films than War of the Rohirrim.
definitely.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, wait, did you just give Craven such a bad score that it balanced out? I guess yeah. You probably give it like a 2, and I think give it like a 6.5. So
Yeah.
yeah, 4
Right,
actually.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But I'm like,
Yeah.
Craven's not that bad. But yeah.
I think it might be that bad.
But yeah, interesting month. Very mixed. But that's just what happens, baby. Welcome to cinema.
That's right. And Tucker,
Maybe
it'll be
life is a
interesting to see
mixed
how
bag, Tanner.
what our averages look like for January. January
Jesus.
2024. Are we going to swap to 2024, of course, for next year?
What?
2024 versus 2025. That's what we're going to do
Yeah, of
for
course.
months going. Okay, okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Didn't know if we wanted to do 2023 again, you know.
Why the fuck would we do that?
Tucker, the monthly domestic box office
Ho, ho,
was
ho.
very very steady this month.
Holy shit.
You can go for a nice lackadaisical walk on that
You could
line
cook an
from
egg on
November to
there.
December. You could cook an egg on that, no worries. You couldn't cook an egg on the line from 2023. The egg would slide right off.
Yeah, because the
Um,
November movie of 2023 notoriously bombed very, very hard. And then we had a
yeah,
very solid winter last year. But I
right.
think what's interesting is what we're seeing that line hold isn't that December's movies, specifically the year, were phenomenally big. I mean, we've seen
Hmm.
way bigger holidays in the past.
Of course.
But is that that soft first part of this month into the decent success of Mufasa and Sonic and Nosferatu were very much buoyed and complemented very nicely by the holds of Gladiator, Wicked, Moana, and even to some
Yeah,
extent Red One. And so
right.
we had actually a really, really healthy box office month in this December.
It was, a good balance of those holds and the new offerings and
Mhm.
everything. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't to the degree of, like I remember like during Thanksgiving about a month ago, we were
Yeah.
like, theater chains were like, "There's so many people in the theater, we don't know what to do. We're making so much money." I remember hearing those same reports over Christmas this year, but
Yeah.
maybe it's just because they were like used to the
Yeah.
number of people walking in the doors this time around.
Well, I mean,
So
clearly
yeah,
the amount of money stayed about the same. And
exactly.
one thing
Yeah.
I will say is, given the great word of mouth and holds for specifically both Moana and Wicked, which I think will have decent holds all the way into January from more than a month later.
Hmm.
And of course, I think the continuing holds of Mufasa, Sonic, and Nosferatu, I think we're actually going to be looking at a healthy overall January
Yeah.
for theater going. Not necessarily that, as we'll get to, I think that January's releases will bring in too many people.
Yeah.
But well, I think it'll probably be better than this year's January in terms of
Oh,
people going to see them.
oh,
It's not a very high bar, but I think we're
yeah.
going to be easily looking at a solid uptick
I think so
from
too.
for January. Like, and also I will say, when we're moving on to next year, I would like to add another line to this instead of
Oh,
getting
sure.
rid of
We can do that.
2023, just to
Let's talk
see.
about what color is it gonna be? Oh
Tanner,
no.
there's a lot of other colors.
What? No, name one.
Actually, you know what? Don't put me on the spot like that.
Okay, sorry. All right, Tucker, let's take a look at the cumulative box office total, where we have again cut down that
Yeah,
2023 lead
Jesus.
to very manageable
Yeah,
4.8%.
totally.
Honestly, this was about 7% when we talked last month, and yeah, we'll probably even out to be less than 5.
Yep.
So good stuff
Well, no,
all
it did.
around.
We're done.
Oh yeah, that's it.
No, I mean, like, the year's done. So, like, isn't that
Well,
the?
yeah. Well, the totals still come in a couple days after the month ends or
Oh, sure.
whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So yeah. But
It's not going to change
they
that
don't
much
get
more.
they also don't get lower. The
True.
totals don't get lower.
That's a good
So
point.
so it'll shrink maybe slightly more, but hey, under -5% ain't too shabby for what was a rocky beginning of the year, and then like May was looking pretty dire as
Yeah.
well. Summer rebounded, fall was very strong, so ain't too shabby 2024.
Yeah.
Good job all
Yeah.
around.
Managed to hold a total momentum in a way that we were not expecting. Um, so let's close this out by looking at the top 10 highest grossing movies of 2024, which I think by
Uh-huh.
this point is. Wait, did you update this?
Sonic and Mufasa aren't on here yet. Neither of them
Okay.
have surpassed Kung Fu Panda 4 yet.
And Moana. I guess. Oh, Moana still hasn't outgrossed Wicked?
Domestically, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, a lot of that money for Moana is coming from
Okay.
international.
Okay.
I mean,
Got it. Got it.
I'll do a quick double check here, but I just did this yesterday.
No, I believe
let me
you.
do a
You
let me
wouldn't
do a
have put
quick
it wrong.
squiz. Let me
But
do a
yeah,
quick
we're looking
squeeze.
at a We're looking at what I think, as people have discovered over the last course of the last month, a top 10 highest grossing of only IP based things, which is unfortunate. No original movies in this, but it's not really helped by the fact that Sonic and Mufasa are probably the only ones that could reach into this top 10
Hmm.
once we see their totals, because of course this is top 10 highest grossing movies that released in 2024, not that made their money in 2024. So
Yeah,
uh, all of the movies I mentioned earlier will still be reporting grosses that actually do contribute to
of
this
course, of
through
course.
January or through the end of the theatrical runs. But do you have anything to report? I think you're probably right.
No, it's yeah, it's 424 for Wicked, 395 for
Okay, great.
Moana. So yeah, Moana will. You think Moana could surpass the Wicked domestically? I mean, they're both making
Yeah.
money
Oh,
at
I think
at a
so.
very good tick.
But yeah, but I think Moana will probably hold even
Okay,
better.
okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a fair
so
point.
I don't know. It'll be
And then
close
yeah,
regardless.
yeah, and I'd say yeah, we can probably say bye bye to Godzilla and Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah,
It's only
yeah.
a matter of time.
We'll see. We'll see. But let's talk about headlines, Tanner.
Oh God, there's a lot, Tucker. There's a lot of news this month.
Deep breath,
So
everyone.
lock in. Lock in. Here we go. Okay, so obviously a lot of release date stuff as 2025 continues to get more and more settled in for release dates. One of the first ones from this month were there's a new Final Destination. Final Destination Bloodlines will come out in May 16th, 2025. There was a previously dated film, Flowervale Street, which was that date. That will come out in March of 2026 now.
Hmm.
That's the like Ewan McGregor, Anne Hathaway. No one really knows what it's about, but it's maybe about dinosaurs or something
Yeah.
movie.
Well, what's interesting about that is we'd seen that release date locked in, I think, in like early this year or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, they still got a year for us to like figure out what this movie is. But now we're less than half a year away from that initial slate or the initial spot of May, and it's like, well, no one knows what this movie is, and like that's
Uh-huh.
not a good sign.
Right.
And so, like, when would they even have put out the trailer for this movie? I mean, honestly,
Soonish.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, but honestly, like, it feels like a first half of the year major tentpole movie should start getting its trailers
Yeah, I mean
about
this
now.
this it was like locked in for an IMAX release and still is with that new March 2026 date. So I'm fascinated to see what's going on there. Anyway, Tucker, the National Association of Theater Owners has announced not one, not two, not three, but four new At the Movies promotional days in 2025. These are the folks who
I didn't hear
organized
about this at all.
the National Cinema Day from
Okay,
a couple years
interesting.
back.
I kind of like
So
this idea.
exactly. So we're doing four of them this year. I think in lieu of doing a National Cinema Day, we're doing four different promotional things. So there's National Popcorn Day. Hey, coming up in just a couple weeks. Get your free popcorn at the theater on January 19th. Then you got Sneak Peek Saturday on April 19th, which will include, a look ahead, I think from CinemaCon at the movie coming out that summer.
Huh. So what does that
Special looks
actually mean?
special looks, maybe a couple new trailers for films from like that fall or something like that. Just a thing to be like, hey, you want to get some stuff that usually was only be seen at CinemaCon, but you can see it at the movies. Why not?
Maybe.
Uh,
I don't know. We'll see. That's an interesting new thing. Then you've
mhm.
got date night at the movies on August 15th, which I believe is pretty close to when National Cinema Day was for
Yeah,
2 years.
National Cinema Day was early September, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah, yeah. And Family Day at the movies in November 9th. So we'll
Yeah,
see. I don't know if they're really going to be able to swing this, but it's an interesting marketing gimmick for this year. National Cinema Day actually did pay off quite a bit. The first year they did it a couple years ago, but they just opted not to do it last year for whatever goddamn reason.
hmm
And now they're doubling down. So we'll see. Or they're
Tucker,
quadrupling
Tucker,
down.
yeah, they're quadrupling
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
All right, Tucker. The 2025 Oscars coming in March will stream simultaneously on Hulu for the first time ever. The Academy,
Yeah.
welcome to the future. The Academy.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you here, where you can stream things, you can live stream important things that you want people to
They
watch.
just heard about this. Like, huh? What
Yeah,
the
wait a
hell?
second, huh? Tucker ComScore, whom we get, or and studios get a lot of their box office results from. It's sort of an aggregator who who pulls in box office results and reports them. This is a subscription service that many studios subscribe to or pay to have their box office results, exclusively reported.
Yeah.
Will no longer hide reporting for studios. So
God
this is
damn,
something
that's
that
so nice.
yeah, well, no, that's something that studios could have requested up until this point, and they did for things like Juror Number Two. Night Bitch had its box office totals hidden from the general public. So yeah, that's no longer going to happen in
I appreciate that.
2025.
That actually
Yeah.
is really nice. Great. Uh, and we have got some news from DC Studios. And technically, there's even a little bit more DC news coming down later at the bottom.
Mhm.
But we have release dates for both Clayface, which I believe is a new movie as of announced this month, right?
Yes.
Clayface is Mike Flanagan, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which is interesting and crazy.
Mhm.
Sets a September 11th, 2026 date. That's going to be the most important thing that's happening on that day.
Right. Yes. And Tucker, the Dynamic Duo, which is a mixed animation film that we heard about a couple months ago, which is going to be about Nightwing and Jason Todd, I think,
Yeah.
incorporating multiple different animation styles,
Wow,
has been made
James
for,
Gunn really is running a studio, isn't he?
yeah, for June 30th,
What a fucking guy.
2028. Yeah.
Christ. 2028, Jesus Christ, that's forever.
Yeah.
Oh my
Hey
God.
Tucker, we don't want a War Other Rohirrim
No, that's
situation.
true.
We want
That's true, yeah.
many years to work on this thing.
Yeah, and we'll
Okay.
we'll see if it doesn't get canceled in the next 4 years
Well,
of development.
hey, we got to see how Superman does. That's kind of what James Gunn is saying. Is like, hey, listen, if Superman doesn't do well, we kind of got to rethink this whole thing.
Yeah. And then
Anyway,
also, I don't think you have this anywhere on here, but the Batman Brave and the Bold movie was
oh yeah,
delayed indefinitely, I guess. Like,
it didn't have a date, and then Andy Muschietti was like, yeah, it's not. Oh, I'm not really starting on it soon. I may make him another movie before that. Tucker, this is speculation, and we'll just talk about it now. The Batman Part Two
Yes.
was also delayed a year to October 2027.
that's so far away, man.
It is so far away. And this is my take on this whole situation. There apparently still has not been a first draft of the Batman Part 2 script turned into James Gunn, as of what he said.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because, and this has been substantiated by some rumor reporting as well, that James Gunn and Peter Safran and all the higher ups over at DC Studios and Warner Brothers are like, Matt Reeves, please let us put Robert Pattinson in the DCU, please. And he's like, I don't know, guys. I don't want to be locked into writing Batman for the next 10 years of my life, putting him in the cinematic universe and everything.
Yeah.
It sounds like Matt Reeves is the only holdout, and so I think there might be some back end negotiations going on, and what this script is going to look like as it comes out after the DCU has fully launched in cinemas.
That's very interesting, yeah, because that would mean quite a bit of changes specifically for the Batman Brave and the Bold movie, because that would, like, they wouldn't make it, right? Like, if
No, they
the
just
Batman
wouldn't make it.
Part 2 is in,
Because
because then
James Gunn
would then technically
What?
Dynamic Duo would be based off of characters from
Also,
Matt Reeves Batman.
Well, I thought
Technically?
Dynamic Duo was going to be like an Elseworlds thing.
Oh, was it? I don't know. I don't fucking know.
I don't fully remember. They can because that movie comes out in fucking 4 years.
Yeah,
three
who
4
knows?
years. They had time to change that anyway. But no, I think that James Gunn is smart enough to realize that general audiences are going to be confused if there are two live action
Yes.
Batman
Yes.
universes going on at the same time.
This is
so.
correct.
I think he's privy to that. Also, on the Warner Brothers front, since we're there, Mickey 17 and Sinners have swapped release dates for next year. Apparently because Sinners was shot on film and they needed more time to workshop that in labs and whatnot
Sure.
to fully finish it up. So hey, fair enough. I'd like that movie to look good. And a new Alejandro G. Iñárritu film was set in 2026. This is the one starring Tom Cruise that took the original
Yeah.
The Batman Part 2 date.
Yeah, cool. And you've got a couple movies down here that I'd like you to describe to the audience. Hurry Up Tomorrow
okay.
set date for June 16th, 2025. 28 years later, The Bone Temple sets date for January 16th, 2026. And The Mummy sets date for April 17th, 2026. Tanner, tell us what
Yes.
these movies are.
All right, so Hurry Up Tomorrow is a film that is not directed by The Weeknd, but it is starring The Weeknd, and it is a tie-in to his album that is forthcoming. It is a psychological thriller that is him and oh yes, Jenna Ortega is in this as well. This is directed by Trey Edward Schultz. Who did like It Comes at Night and Waves and whatnot. Oh, it's also Barry Keoghan. Oh, and hey, also Charlie D'Amelio from TikTok is in it.
Sure. Okay.
We'll be interested to see what
Do
that
you know what
is.
studio has that movie?
I think Tucker, it might be Lionsgate, if
Yeah.
memory serves.
Okay.
Yeah. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is the second film in this 28 years later like cinematic universe slash trilogy building going on from Sony. This is directed by Nia DaCosta and will come out, yes, 6 months after 28 years later, in
Hmm.
early 2026.
Okay. Cool.
So interesting
I'm
stuff.
into that.
Uh,
The Nia DaCosta's Candyman was really cool.
yes.
And I'm excited for 28 years later. So
hmm
this will be good.
Uh, and The Mummy is from, Atomic Monster slash Blumhouse. This is directed by Lee Cronin, who directed Evil Dead
Oh, that's
Rise.
right. Yeah.
Yes. Perhaps, them trying to dip their toe further into like the classic Universal monsters, reimagining them. So,
Now, is that just because the idea of a mummy is a generic enough thing where now, or I guess, are they doing this alongside Universal?
yes.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, yeah,
Yeah. Blumhouse is kind of they can operate with anyone, but a lot of times they work with
gotcha.
Universal.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense in this context, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Of that bunch, I trust Lee Cronin the most to creatively deliver something interesting,
Mhm.
and we're actually seeing Blumhouse try their hand at a reboot of a Universal monster movie in this month
Yes.
with Wolfman. So we'll see what this means for the future of these characters. I mean, I don't think they're building towards a cinematic universe or anything, but
No, I don't. I think I think they learned their lesson on that one.
yeah, and we do have Frankenstein movies coming up as well.
Mm.
So
Oh yeah, two of them.
yeah,
Anyway, Tucker, home stretch here. Development on the next James Bond film or films have stalled due to disagreements between the Broccoli estate and Amazon MGM. Amazon MGM wants to do, franchise this thing out, really focus on like spin-offs and multimedia and everything like that. Whereas the Broccoli estate is not wanting to do that.
yeah.
They want to do it the old-fashioned way. Make movies, put them in theaters. That's it.
No,
No flowery, no ifs, ands, buts. It was also especially funny because I believe I forget her name, but like the main woman in charge of
yeah,
this stuff now, something Broccoli,
yeah,
said that the fine folks at Amazon MGM were fucking idiots for
yeah.
wanting this. So
Oh.
very funny stuff.
We're finishing it off with talking about what is going to happen in January of
Oh, Tucker,
2025.
wait, no, I got a couple more.
Wait,
Sorry, Tucker, I got a couple more
they're
for you.
just hiding from me? They're not on this
What?
thing.
The Wayne went out of order.
Oh, I didn't realize that. My bad. Oh, we
Yeah,
jumped
sorry.
down to the release dates thing. Okay, I
Yeah, okay.
apologize.
Okay, Tucker. 1 year from today, or a little less actually, Marty Supreme, Paul Feig's The Housemaid, and Anaconda starring Paul Rudd and Jack Black will release on Christmas Day 2025.
What a fucking
Trying to
motley crew.
Exactly. Interesting crew here. Another Timothy Chalamet, this time from A24, of course. Trying to recapture like the Nosferatu baby girl, completely unknown situation that happened this year,
Sure.
and worked out quite well. So, and of course, perhaps the biggest news story of the month was Christopher Nolan has revealed what his next film is going to be. It's an adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Coming out July 2026. Get ready.
Crazy to do a Simpsons movie.
That's true. They already did. They already did one of those. Did someone tell Christopher? I don't think they
Oh,
did.
yeah, that's going to be a big deal, and that's going to be in a
Yeah.
couple years. So look forward
Yes.
to that.
Okay.
But January 2025 releases
Ugh.
Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, Wolfman, Flight Risk, Companion, Better Man, One of Them Days, Presence, and Dogman.
Yes.
Yippee!
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this isn't a great lineup. But there's a little bit of diversity here. Companion doesn't have a lot of information about it, but I'm actually looking forward to that. By all
I'm
accounts,
like,
Better Man is
yeah,
pretty good. We've
hmm
got a Steven Soderbergh movie coming. Flight Risk, we're gonna have a
yeah,
ton of fun with. Lee Winnell actually did really good with his Invisible Man movie, so this
hmm
Wolfman movie might be pretty good. This is actually not the worst month that it could be, but I think that for like people going to see these movies, it's gonna be really bad. But quality wise, I think this is gonna be a little bit of a step up for a
yeah.
January.
I mean, I've heard good things about Better Man, and it's weird that we have like Den of Thieves 2 and Flight Risk are both looking to do like the plane thing of like the dad action movie
Yeah,
of January.
yeah, yeah,
We'll see who comes out on top there. And Tucker, I'm still apprehensive that Companion might move,
yeah,
just because of the complete lack of marketing around that film that comes out in 1 month.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
hmm Okay. But Tucker, what do we think? What do we think is going to happen here? January 2025 box office ranking predictions. We both
Go.
have Wolfman at number one.
Yes, we do. And where
hmm
we start to differ is that I really don't know anything about Den of Thieves, and so I have nothing to base my like predictions on of like, oh, how big is this gonna be?
hmm
I do know what DreamWorks is, and so I'm like,
Okay.
Dogman is like a little bit safer of a pick for me. Um,
That's fair.
and then I have Den of Thieves because you have it number two. I'm like, I can't look like a complete idiot and like even not
Uh-huh.
have it on there or something. And then Flight Risk and Companion, like I don't know, I feel like Mark Wahlberg is a big enough draw versus Companion, which is people don't really seem to have a grasp on. Just
Yeah.
the fact that there's a Mark Wahlberg movie in theaters, I think, especially in the lighter January, I think that's gonna put a little bit more
Yeah.
butts in seats.
For me, I'm like, has Mark Wahlberg has like diluted his star power
No,
so
I
much that I'm
agree.
not sure. Yeah, I'm just not sure about that. And, I just don't want to be burned by like companion being like this
Surprise hit.
like action horror
Yeah,
thriller thing that every time a trailer plays for it in a theater that I'm in, the audience seems pretty captivated by what's
yeah.
going on there. So I think I'm gonna rank that a little bit higher. And maybe it won't even fucking come out. Who's to say? But Tucker, my numbers. Wolfman, $23 million opening
Okay, we're
weekend.
starting low.
We're starting low. Den of Thieves 2,
Which
Pantera.
by the way is to your credit the opposite of what you did last month.
Right. Den of Thieves 2, Pantera. I looked into this because I am also not super familiar with the original film, but opened pretty well in the same spot in January.
Okay,
So I'm gonna say $18 million for
sure.
Pantera. Companion, $15 million.
Okay, I think that's very reasonable.
Dog Dogman, $12 million.
All right, all right,
Flight Risk, $10 million.
all right. We're operating a very tight sphere here, so who
Yes,
knows what the
yes.
orders is going to be? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that ends up shaking out. But that brings us to the very end here of our
Wow.
December box office banter video, the last one of 2024. We will also be doing a look back at 2024 as a whole
hmm
for the box office, and then we're also going to be doing a look forward to 2025. Those videos will be coming
Our
out.
eyes are going in so many different directions. We're looking back, we're looking at the present, we're looking
Yeah,
ahead. Tucker, what's going
we're
on
like
here?
chameleons. They
Oh,
operate
true.
separately, so we
Yeah, yeah,
can
yeah.
manage our brain can process things
hmm
at the same time.
Tucker, but there's going to be no shortage of box office discussion on this channel in the coming weeks. So make sure to stay tuned, subscribe to Backlot Banter, and hey, we'll see you next time.
Oh hey, oh.
Hey, we'll see you next time.